Welcome to Matters That Matter. In today's episode, we are privileged to have Mr. Barrack Wandera. Mr. Barrack Wandera is a young entrepreneur who owns a publishing firm known as Intersen. Barrack Wandera is not only an entrepreneur, but he is also a teacher. Welcome to our studios.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Very many young people out there would want to know about you. How did you start this company? Where do you come from? What inspired you to start this company? So let us just begin systematically. Tell us something about yourself.
My name is Barrack Wandera. I am a teacher and a publisher. I teach at St. Martha's Mwitoti Secondary School in Mumias. I publish with Intersen Books Publishing Company. I am a student, an MS student at Maseno University where I pursue literature, and I hope to graduate very soon. I have authored a number of books, including but not limited to Diwani Msikicho and In Whispers We Shout. Thank you.
Now, I think that's a good introduction, but I want us to go slightly deeper. Young people out there would want to know what motivated you to start this company. They want to know how you navigate this terrain. It's not an easy terrain, I presume. And from the background check, I've just discovered that you're just about 29 years old.
Sure enough.
So how did this idea of starting a publishing firm occur to you?
The idea of starting a publishing firm is one long journey that can be traced back to my high school years when I was in Form 2 at Butler Boys High School. Then I would write poems in Swahili. I remember very well when I was a student at Butler, they gave me a name Kongoya Mswahili after a character in Ken Walibora's Siku Njema. So after writing these poems, there was this burning desire to publish my book. And then I had a number of challenges in getting a publisher because most of them would acknowledge that yes, you've written a good anthology, but then don't you think you could collaborate with others for you to come up with your anthology just to have a name? While others told me that they did not have Swahili poetry in their publishing plan. So this actually led us into discussions with my friends after approaching a number of publishers, and most of them were not actually willing to publish Swahili poetry. So this is actually what led us into starting this publishing firm called Intersen Publishers. I had initially tried with a number of publishers, submitted my manuscripts, but I didn't feel that the kind of service I was given, especially with regards to self-publishing, I didn't feel the service was satisfactory. And then the three of us had actually worked in some organization. It's a community-based organization, then based in Maseno, that was actually meant to support students from vulnerable backgrounds. So the organization was known as Intersen Community-Based Organization. We ran it for 3 years. We helped a number of students, both in Maseno University and from within Maseno community. Then once we were done with that phase, once we are done with college, and the whole concept of publishing kept ringing to our minds, we thought it wise to do some benchmarking with a number of individuals who had published their works. One of the individuals I consulted was Boniface Mwangi, who gave me an idea on how to start a publishing firm. So I went ahead, registered the publishing firm, and began the whole concept of publishing. But it wasn't easy because we had a number of challenges our way. One of them was resources, because you realize that publishing is not a mean feat. It is something that requires a lot of resources, and as such, we had to find different ways of getting funds to actually see to it that our publishing firm remained afloat.
That's quite an initiative. Before this interview, you had said something in our casual discussion about some teacher who discouraged you from writing, and I think this is something that should come out.
Sure enough, I tried to conceal it, but then I remember throughout my high school years, I had challenges with my teachers who mostly would tell me writing poetry may not take you anywhere. So they would tell me to study harder and focus on what matters. But then I had this burning desire in me. In fact, this led me to writing a poem, which I think later, if you allow me, I'll just read a few lines from
Sure.
the anthology. And the poem is actually titled Sitoacha Ushairi, to actually tell my teachers that, look, I may go into some short break from poetry, but I'm not going to abandon poetry altogether.
Now, I've asked you that question because it is disturbing. I know of very many young people who are discouraged from pursuing, their passion by teachers who have no idea about nurturing talent. And I think this is the problem in this country. I think this problem must be addressed because teachers must be extremely sensitive to discover the talent. And once you discover the talent of each of the students that you have, then it becomes important for you to nurture. But you can't go out of your way to discourage a youngster from being a writer. And I've always said that our profession, the teaching profession, has been invaded by people who should never have become teachers in the first place.
Yes.
And that is why we do certain things that do not help our cause, do not help our students. I know of teachers who tell students, oh, you are foolish, you were born like that, you will never do this, and so on. And those discouraging messages are the ones that do not help us bring out the best from our students. But coming from that point, I think it is necessary for us to address the basic question that anybody out there would want to ask you. How did you marshal the resources? You were a university student just the other day. You were struggling to get a job. How did you get the resources to publish? I'm told that you have about 30 publications, 40, right?
Yes, sure.
40 publications from Intercent Publishers. How did you marshal the resources?
We actually had a number of collaborative efforts. Number one, much as Intersen Publishers is a result of collaborative effort between me and my partners, we had a number of organizations that actually supported me in the quest to actually start this company. First and foremost, when I was in college, I enrolled for social entrepreneurship training with an organization called Digital Opportunity Trust. And then I did it for a couple of years, the first year, and then we did it for the second year, so for 2 years. And in the process, we had a number of opportunities which we would be exposed to. One of them, which actually happened to have come at the height of COVID-19, when we actually were setting up the base for this publishing company, was funding which I did receive from MasterCard Foundation in collaboration with Canadian government. And this had to do with the teaching and availability of learning resources to students who were at home and then who could not interact with teachers. So all I did was to go an extra mile and create platforms of interacting with students while they were at home. It is said that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So our initiative then as Intersen was to ensure that we engage these students. All that we requested from them was that they have a stable network and then log on platforms such as Zoom, which will enable them to interact with us. So we did this program for about 6 months. We interacted with students, and I personally taught these students pro bono. I engaged students from different parts of the country as long as they could get the link to my lessons. And then I will teach them just to engage them and to give them hope that all is not lost. In the end, MasterCard Foundation and Canadian government, through Digital Opportunity Trust, thought it wise to acknowledge the efforts that we had. And as such, we were awarded. Every one of us who was actually awarded, we got some from the organization. And then that actually played a key role in terms of kickstarting this publishing fund. But then moving forward, we also had key strategies that helped us to remain afloat. And one of these strategies was collaborative efforts with writers. We realized that we were passionate about publishing books, and especially in fields such as poetry, which we felt students across the country were being exposed to poems which were written, most of them were written in the 70s and 80s. If you look at anthologies that have been published, and you realize that most of them were actually published in the former years. So we thought it was, why don't we do something that will actually appeal to the sensibilities of these children? And that is not to say that poetry that was published in the early post-independence years are not relevant to our students, but we just thought it wise that every generation has to capture these sensibilities in a different way. So, in these collaborative efforts, we saw to it that writers would actually collaborate with us, pre-purchase a few copies, and then in the end would marshal the funds to actually see to it that our production is on.
Actually, I agree with you that we teach literature as if literature is frozen in a certain historical epoch. So you will find us teaching works that were published in the 60s and the 70s,
Yes.
as if nothing new ever came out of our publishing, industry after David Rubadri and Cook and the rest of the other, writers of the 60s and the 70s. And I think this is important. Just the other day, I went to a school right at the end of the western part of Uganda, and when I entered this class, for sure, the teacher was using David Rubadiri's poem that was published in the 60s. And I looked at the lesson plan, and I looked at the schemes of work, and I realized within the schemes of work, there is no indication that this teacher is aware of new poetry that has emerged since the 70s.
Yes.
So, but as we come to the end of our discussion for now, I think you may want just to shed light on whether you have gone into publishing of electronic resources. You know, we know for sure right now there is so many platforms that bring to us educational resources. Have you elevated yourself not just from the physical book but to the other platforms?
Sure enough, we have done that. Some of our books are actually available on Amazon. And as Intersen Books Publishing Company, we are working on a platform. We have an app that is in progress, which will actually enable readers to actually read these books from their, be it smartphone or from their computers. So we are currently working on that application, and we hope that by mid this year the application will be ready, so that you don't have to pay as much as you pay for physical books. You realize that physical books are a little expensive as compared to
The digital.
the digital ones. So we are for sure transiting into that age, and we want to create a platform where individuals can read these books and then use even the available payment methods. Because you realize with Amazon there are certain limitations. But then if we create a platform like the one we are creating, where individuals can even pay via M-Pesa and then read the book. If they want to buy the book, they will buy it. But if they want just to read the book, then of course they will read it at a lower cost. And this will actually help, especially in cases such as universities, where you see there's a lot of plagiarism. A lot of books are actually photocopied. I think in a way it will help these students to access this book at an affordable rate and then see to it that they do the reading of.
Do you have any uh, plan to do audiobooks? Because that is really the direction that some publishers are taking. Audiobooks.
Sure enough, as I said, we are creating this application. It also comes with some investment. Then we are doing some trials on the same. So at the end of the day, we want it to accommodate digital books as well as audiobooks, because that is where the world is heading to.
As we come to the tail end of our discussion, I would like to ask you to address the upcoming writers and entrepreneurs in the area of book publishing and writing. What message do you have to give them?
For upcoming writers, this is what I have to say: that writing is a painful process. It is rewarding, but the rewards are not instant. It is good to invest in writing. It is good to listen to your editors. It is good to work over your skill for some time. And then at the end of the day, after refining it, you shall surely reap out of it. But it is not a trade you ply into today and expect to earn from it tomorrow. It is something that requires sweat and blood. And for sure, if you are willing to commit that, then you shall surely reap from it. We have a number of individuals who have invested into writing and they are reaping out of it. They have no regrets about the same. For entrepreneurs who intend to ply into book publishing, this is an area that is still not explored to the levels it is expected, and especially so with regards to self-publishing. There are lots of writers out there who want to publish their books. Some of them would want to publish books for intellectual gratification. And some of these books may not be the ones that will sell like hotcake. These are books which they would wish to share with 100 people, with their friends, and get that gratification of being published writers, and also share within academia, which may not, in essence, lead to them making a lot of money. That may not be accepted by mainstream publishers. So these are the kind of individuals who should be targeted by upcoming entrepreneurs in the field of writing. What we have at Intercent Publishers is what we call POD, print on demand. So if an author comes to us, they want to print 100 books, we print for them 100 books. If they want to print 1,000 books, we print 1,000 books. Even if they want 5 books, we print 5 books. So for upcoming entrepreneurs, all I have to say is that let us see to it that we carve our objectives to fit the demands of the market. And once we do that, then the field will be ours to reap. Thank you.
We were talking to Mr. Barrack Wandera, the director of Intercent Publishers. Thank you for finding time to talk to us.
Thank you.
I hope you'll also find time to join us in our next episode,
Sure.
in which we are going to delve more in the mechanics of writing and the mechanics of publishing. And I believe that many people out there would want to know some of these things that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof.
God